Kindred North. Andy, what's up? What's going on? How's
Yeah,
how, how's the music business?
the music business is business. It's, they don't call it music friends, they call it music business. No, it's good. It's treated me well over the past couple of years. I can't complain.
Good, good. So, new album coming up.
Yeah,
You know, you're putting out a couple singles first, and you're on Pride and Joy. The
that's
album,
right.
right? The album comes out what August 21st.
August 21st. You've done your homework. Yeah.
Definitely. Tell me, the PR person who took care of you and I got in touch with, Brigitte. Um,
Yes.
Tell me about her.
Oh yeah, we've known each other for a long time. I used to be in a band called Silent Call, which incidentally is how Andreas and I met. My partner in Kindred North, he used to work as a music reviewer, and he
Right.
reviewed the debut album by my band Silent Call. And we were looking for a record deal for that band, and that's how we like first got in touch with Birgit. And she's just she's a great person to work with, and I've had the pleasure of releasing several records on Pride and Joy over the years, both with Kindred North and with other bands. And it's always fun to work with Pride and Joy and GerMusica as well. It kind of breaks up the monotony of what I told you before about the music business just being business.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I wonder if she picks the bands because she's doing an amazing job. I mean, the stuff I hear from her all the time is great music.
I agree with you, and I think that there's a lot of very personal selection going on there. Funnily enough, this time I wasn't actually the one that got in touch with Birgit, so I couldn't be accused of nepotism. She actually picked Kindred North, just by the quality of our music, and that was really cool. And only afterwards did it come
Right.
out that I was actually in this band, and so on. So it was a surprise, and it was really fun. But I think they have a really rigid like selection process over there at that label.
Now, the first single, Natural High, um, tell me a little bit about that. And it's going to be on the self-titled album.
It's a self-titled album. That's an 80s classic. I'd say it's melodic hard rock, but it's got teeth, big vocals, big chorus, got some aggressive guitar work, but everything is in service of melody.
Right.
It kind of makes it clear that we're not kind of the softer side of AOR, but we're
Right.
also not, modern metal with a
Right.
chorus pasted on top. It's kind of voice forward, it's guitar forward, it's song forward. And I guess the closest way I can describe it is like imagine the future that the late 80s promised,
Right.
but that the world never really delivered. So it's not about nostalgia. It's not like retro cosplay. We're not putting on spandex pants and playing
Right.
tiger stripe guitars. It's more like asking like, what if all of that musicianship, all of that danger, all of that ambition that pushed these players and these bands forward, what if that kept evolving? and,
Right.
and that's the kind of music that we wanted to write. And Natural High is a great example of writing music with that kind of brief in it.
Now, on June 27th, I guess your second single will be coming out, Learn to Live.
Learn to Love Again. Learn to Love Again.
So tell me a little bit about that song.
Well, that song is basically our power ballad. It has the same sonic makeup as Natural High. It's got that synthesizer bass, thumping all the way through the beginning. It
Right.
also has some, very soaring high vocals, but this time it's kind of delivered in this really kind of heartfelt Bon Jovi or Europe ballad
Right.
type package where what inspired us was the standards that those bands set. I mean, you listen to those guys and
Right.
you hear people who could really play
Right.
and really arrange and really sing and really write. And that's the part that we wanted to answer. Again,
Right.
it's not about the clothes, it's not about the hair, obviously. It's not about the nostalgia, but it was about the challenge that those heroes posed. And so we wanted to write like a Europe ballad or a Bon Jovi ballad, and I think that came out really great.
Good. Now, it says your influences are Winger, Dokken, and Europe. Is there anybody else?
Well, yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, there's going to be bands from the AOR side like Journey and Survivor. There's also going to be more modern stuff that came out afterwards. I mean, you're going to hear quite a lot of seven-string guitar on this album, and there's going to be some stuff that'll remind you of like 90s skate punk. So for us, it was more kind of like writing the music that we grew up with and not getting too pigeonholed into writing exactly the 1980s.
Right.
But that was a very strong part of what we listened to when we were children. And so that's why maybe that's like the predominant sound,
Right.
but there's going to be a lot of other stuff in there as well.
Now, your next single will come out July 24th, Lose Control. Can you tell me?
Lose Control, exactly.
Can you tell me anything?
Yeah, well, that's about, again, you know, when we look at some of my guitar heroes, it's going to be people like Reb Beach from Winger and you know,
Right.
Key Marcello from Europe. And to me, you know, those guys, they're not asking us to imitate them. You know,
Right.
to my mind, they're daring us to get good enough to answer back. You
Yeah.
know, and so that's the real concept of that song. It's like execution. It's craft. It's real amps. It's a real performance. It's actually practicing this long ass solo instead of just assembling it bar by bar and cutting and pasting it and letting some human danger remain in that music. So hopefully you can kind of figure out when you hear that song, it's like the concept isn't actually the lyrics, the concept is the execution of the song.
And who are your influences with guitar?
Well, as I said, you know, there's some names, you know, you can't walk into a room here in Sweden without mentioning Yngwie Malmsteen. Of course, he's just given. We all grew up with him. He's our mother's milk, you know. So Yngwie Malmsteen, and then you know other Swedish players like Key Marcello as well. But then of course, you know, there's going to be guys like Reb Beach from Winger. There's going to be guys like, you know, George Lynch. There's going to be Tony McAlpine. There's going to be, you know, your standard, you know. Shrapnel Records guys that evolved. But over the years, a lot of those people have evolved into really well-rounded musicians. You know, you take a guy like Paul Gilbert, who started out with, you know, ridiculous videos and ridiculous speed and playing a guitar with a power drill, has actually turned out to be a really super cool rhythm player and a blues player, and just kind of shown the world what happens when you can take that ambition and just make yourself like a fully fledged musician. So I'm like both influenced by them as people, but also the growth that they've done over the decades is the kind of growth I wish, you know, that I could do as well.
Tell me about the guitar work on If This Is Love.
If This Is Love, oh yeah, that is a solo that took a couple of takes to nail. I'll tell you that. So yeah, it's basically one of those songs where Andreas, he came up with the basic form of the song, but the song had no ideas for guitar. It was basically just keyboards and the scratch, you know, synth drum track. And he sent this along and he said, I don't know what to do with it. There's no guitar on this song. I have no ideas for what to play. And so I figured, okay, so if there's no ideas for what the guitar can play, let's let the guitar play everything. So more is more. How can less be more? And so, you know, let's put on a huge riff, and let's put on some, you know, nonstop riffage in the guitar. And then when it comes to the solo, let's start it off nice and slow, and then give it lots of time to develop. And by the time it reaches the end, it's some of the fastest playing I've ever done in my life, you know. And there's you know, lots of alternate picking, and you're going up and you're going down and so on. And as I said, the concept is the execution. These are not copy pasted solos. So this is stuff where I just sat down with my amp, which is sitting right next to me in this room where we are, and just stamped it out until I had something that I was proud of.
Tell me a little bit about the pros and the cons of going into music.
Pros and cons of music. Wow, that's a really good question. So the pros of going into music is anytime you can basically get paid to tell the world about your problems. It's great. A lot of people, you know, they go to therapy and they pay money for someone to listen to what they have inside their heart.
Right.
And when you're playing music, you get to tell people what's inside your heart, and you get to have that echoed back to you, hopefully from people who feel that exact same thing. And being on a stage or hearing from a fan, I had somebody send me a message on Twitter a couple of years back that basically said, like, your records are what put me through 2 tours in Iraq, you know. And that's
Yeah.
those benefits are just intangible, but they're amazing. The downside of the music industry is that, of course, I think the world used to be, when we were growing up, the world used to be one person with a megaphone and 200 people in the audience. And then technology came along and gave everybody a megaphone. And we all made the mistake of thinking that that megaphone came with an audience of 200 people. But in the end, it's just 201 megaphones in a room and everybody's screaming. And so these days you have to be a content creator, you have to be a self-promoter, you have to, you know, record yourself on videos, and you have to do things that at 45 do not come naturally to me. And I don't like that part of having to be involved in that. And so the downside is that you can't just do the thing that you want to do. You can't just play music. You also have to be a businessman and a content creator and a video editor and a, you know, you have to do all of those things. And so like, can you just make it as a musician these days? I'm not so sure. And that's probably my least favorite thing about where music is headed these days.
How much can an ego hurt a band?
Egos are, I mean, let me tell you, 90% of any job, whether it's being a resident doctor in a clinic, or whether it's being an airline pilot, or whether it's being a baker, or whether it's being a guitar player, 90% of any job is being easy to deal with, being easy to be around. If you walk into a room and everybody who's in that room goes, oh no, it doesn't matter how good you are at the thing, because 99% of the time when you're on tour with a band, you're sharing a very limited space and you're not actually playing music on stage. 1% of the time you're playing music on stage. And that 1% cannot buy you a license to act any way you want in the other 99%. So egos can absolutely break a band. And I've been that guy. I mean, when I was 24, I got fired from a band, which then went on to get some to gather some success. They were called Seventh Wonder. I mean, I love those guys and so on. But I'm the first one to say that the problem was there were too many egos in a very small room, and one of those egos was mine. And that taught me kind of the hard way. It's like, hey, come on, it's okay. It's one thing to sing and play guitar, but you have to be easy to be around. And from then I just made it my mission to just, when I walk into a room, I want people to go like, ah, cool, it's him, you know.
Now, you mentioned Yngwie Malmsteen before. Now, when people go see him, they see ego or jealousy. Which one?
I'll tell you what, Yngwie was amazing to me when I met him on the street here in Stockholm. He was playing a show, and this was way back in 1998, I think. I was walking around in downtown Stockholm, and who should arrive around a corner but Yngwie, his wife, and his little kid, who was in a pram at the time. No, he had no obligation to me whatsoever. The guy was out privately with his family, obviously had traveled to Stockholm. I walked up to him and he suffered me so well. And he said like, oh, you play guitar? That's amazing. Like, so like, do you live around here? Yeah, I live around here. Well, tell you what, we're playing a show tonight. It's at this place. How would you like to be on the guest list? You know, let me put your name down. What can I sign for you? Is there anything you want me to sign? You know, and I had like a piece of paper in my pocket. He signed that for me. And it was like, hey, see you at the show. Hey, by the way, do you have a friend? Do you want to bring a friend along? I'm like, yeah. You know, so he's like, write your friend's name down. We're going to make the show. So, you know, we were there. We stood with the guys in Europe. I was a kid, you know, we stood with the guys in Europe looking at Yngwie Malmsteen from the VIP section. It's like, the guy was one of the coolest guys I'd ever met. So how much of what you see is persona and how much is actually real is also something that like, there's a lot of other people, like, you know, Devin Townsend on stage is incredible because of his stage banter, and he just insults everybody around him. But off stage, he's like the sweetest guy. So I think, you know, ego, when it's a persona, when you're playing a part, is one thing, but you also have to kind of, when you take off your guitar off stage, you kind of have to take that off as well and go like, okay, the clown suit comes off. I can just be a normal person now. And from my perspective, you know, that's the Yngwie I know.
Now, how much is AI going to hurt the music business?
Oh, I think it's going to hurt the music immeasurably, because as I said before, you know, if the situation before was that you had one person with a megaphone and 200 people in the audience, and then technology came along and gave everybody a megaphone. Well, now it's not just a megaphone. You know, now technology is coming along and giving everybody the ability to flood the internet with, you know, AI generated music. And I'll tell you what, you know, if you look in Japan, you know, they have artificial artists like Hatsune Miku who go on tour And Hatsune Miku can play in 3 cities at one time. She never wants to get paid. She's never going to get pregnant. She's never going to get in a relationship. She's never going to say, I'm not going to wear that. She's never going to say, I'm not going to sing those lyrics. From a music industry perspective, from a business perspective, the cutthroat environment that the music business is,
Right.
it's going to outcompete any artist that actually needs to keep some kind of creative license or some kind of sanity or some kind of, home life, work life balance. If you want to dictate anything, there's going to be an AI that somebody can put in front of you. And that's kind of why with Kindred North, we wanted to just let the execution matter. For us, it's kind of like no shortcuts. We live in an amazing time, but there's also more hiding than ever. You can buy beats, you can pull up presets, you can quantize, you can tune, you can have AI help write your songs. And look, tools are tools. I'm not against technology, but for us, it was like to remind ourselves what happens when you actually do the thing, because the journey is the fun part.
I mean, I see a lot on Facebook and different medias and stuff like that. And some of the songs I love, and I said, man, I want to see if I can get in touch with this band. And it's not real. It blows my mind. It's that good. Yet, I can't ask for an interview. And, like there's nothing there, just somebody with music. It's just, it's astonishing.
And for me, it goes back to, is music the backdrop to your life? Because if you're making an omelet in the morning and you need to put something on in the background, I can understand how AI music can be, it's from a sonic perspective, it makes sense. But music is also about taking part of somebody else's mental journey and their emotional journey. And for me, the best records I've ever heard are the ones where you can go, I know exactly what this person was feeling when they wrote this song.
Right.
But if it's AI generated, where does that feeling come from? And who are we talking about? I mean, you're not actually forming a relationship to anything.
Right.
And if that's important to you, then AI generated music isn't going to cut it. But if it's just a backdrop to your life that you put in your headphones while you do other things, I can absolutely see the point of it.
Let's get back to your album.
Yeah.
Billion Miles Away. Tell me a little bit about that track.
Billion Miles Away. Well, that actually is a very old track. We usually tell people that this took about 3 years to write. Billion Miles Away, we wrote 10 years ago, Andreas and I. And it was one of our first kind of forays into writing music together, because I was originally a session player in Andreas's band, Nergård. So I got, I did what the boss said, and I got a check in the mail for doing what the boss said. And that was the first time we actually went like, hey, can we write something together? Would this work?
Right.
And so about 3 years ago, when we started putting songs together for Kindred North, we kind of dug that out of the closet, and we said, well, I really dug this idea for the song that we were doing. And I was supposed to do a duet with a female vocalist for that, in Nergård. Never happened for whatever reason. And I just said, well, I can sing kind of high. I can sing those parts, and I just sang the whole song instead. And we gave it a real, kind of thumping 7-string guitar thing. I played a solo that was like heavily influenced by Symphony X and Michael Romeo, who's another one of my heroes. You asked about my heroes before. And yeah, the idea is just what happens when somebody feels like they're a billion miles away and you've finally woken up to what you need to do. But the question is it too far gone? Or can you take that love and like take it back out into the light and bring it back to life? Or is it too late?
So then the next track, Walk Through the Fire.
Walk Through the Fire. That was a hoot to make as far as vocal harmonies. That's some of the most harmonies I've done. I think I sang about 200 pass-throughs of that chorus. So there's 25 channels of vocal harmonies, and I think each one of those channels had about, if you average about 4 takes per channel, then I sang about 200 pass-throughs for it. So there's a lot of vocals, and so the challenge for Walk Through the Fire was to write something where the playing comes in between the vocals and not on top of them, because there's so much vocals there. So I tried to do the kind of Jake E. Lee, Randy Rhoads, Reb Beach thing where the vocals will sing something, and then the guitars will play like a little trill or something in the verse to fill out the gap until the vocals, start again. So you're going to hear a lot of guitar to vocal interplay and a lot of those little fun parts, which I hope people take the time to learn. That would be fun to see somebody else play on the internet. Those little trills I do in person.
So next track, Dance the Night Away.
Dance the Night Away. Obviously, the title itself will reference to some of our heroes, in Van Halen and so on. But the track it's not that track. It's its own song, and that is what happens when you marry kind of soft vocals, because the vocals are softer in AOR, but the guitar is probably the heaviest guitar on the entire album. It's a 7-string guitar that's tuned to drop F sharp. And it has some of those, real kind of gent tones in it, which again, we're not trying to pickle the 80s and just be the 80s. It's 80s influenced, but it's like, what if that had continued on? And so in that juxtaposition between the super heavy guitar and this kind of like super light singing, something exciting happens. And it's basically about a guy who's reminiscing about the times when the love used to be good, which is what they all used to sing about back then.
Next track, track 8, Runaway.
Runaway. That's a pretty emotional track. That Andreas wrote that one, and it was just one of those things where when you're in the studio, again, if we're talking about the concept being the execution, we're just you just put the backing track on and you sing it, and a lot of what you will hear on that track are first takes. It's my first pass through on that song, so it's just that raw emotion, because some of the other takes might be safer, but the first take is something that's, a dangerous take can live forever. And so there's a lot of dangerous takes in that song, which I hope people kind of pick up on. Next
track, Divine.
Divine. Okay, so Divine is interesting because it's in 3/4 time. It's a waltz. It has probably also the most symphonic sound. It's probably the most non-characteristic track on the album, which is why we put it there. Sequencing is kind of a lost art. So it's like, where do you put that track that's going to be like a deeper cut? And I think Divine is our deeper cut, because the time signature is a little weird if you're used to 4/4, and the sound is a little bit more symphonic, and it's a little bit more progressive than some of the other tracks. And so if Natural High and Walk Through the Fire are the ones that are going to hit you in the forehead on the first listen, Divine is going to be there for you, 14 listens later, when those other songs kind of start to sound banal. This can pick up some more artistry. So it's kind of us at our most progressive, and so on.
Let's get to the last track. It's Hard to Say Goodbye. Tell me about that song.
Hard to Say Goodbye. So that track is exactly what it is. It's hard to say goodbye. We don't want the record to end. We wish we could put 20 more songs on it. And we have songs that went on the cutting room floor that we ended up, not recording, or recording, but not putting on the album. And so it's hard to say goodbye to all of you. And so what happens again if we write a Europe power ballad and just send the record off with this laid back but still kind of rocking, ballad feel that just kind of lulls you into a sense of completion? And there's the outro lick guitar solo and so on. So hopefully people enjoy that so much that they just want to loop the record right back around and come around to the beginning again.
Tell me about the cover art.
Oh, the cover art that's an artist called Daniel Ignacio, who I've worked with for the last 7 years. He's done 3 of the records that I've appeared on another project that I did. And so when it came time to do Kindred North, and we realized we were actually going to get signed, and Birgitt signed us to Pride and Joy, he was the first person I reached out to. And I said, Daniel, I want you to do the cover art for this. And so Kindred North, K for Kravljaca, N for Nergård. And so Kindred for Kindred Spirits, because we've known each other for almost 20 years now, and North because of the part of the world we're from, Norway and Sweden. And so what can we put out that's kind of Nordic and kind of, you know, the 80s aesthetic. There's going to be blues and pinks, and there's going to be, you know, some glow. Nordic, there's going to be like a reindeer, there's going to be mountains, fjords, Norway. There's going to be that mysticism, you know, there. So, you know, Daniel just did a fantastic artwork that just kind of encapsulates that whole feeling, but it doesn't feel retro or cheesy. You know, it's not like it doesn't wallow in 80s stereotypes, but it kind of evokes that time, and he's really good at that. So I'm super proud that we could work with Daniel to get this artwork on board.
How do you feel about paid meet and greets? Fans wanting to get paid for you to meet them.
It's hard enough to make money in the music business. I mean, if the hardest thing you can do on a guitar isn't string skipping tapping, it's making money. So if that's what bands need to do to kind of get back into the into the black after they, you know, Spotify will give you, I mean, what is it? It's something like, you know, if you do 1 million streams, they'll give you $70 or something. I mean, it's crazy. I've never seen any money from Spotify, and basically the money that you get as an artist is there from playing live. It's from people buying your stuff on Bandcamp or buying records. Right. You know, because when somebody buys a CD, you get a substantial amount of that money as a band. But when somebody streams your song on Spotify, you get nothing. So if that's what bands need to do, I have no shit to talk, you know, as a band member. I've never been in that position where that's been a business decision that we've had to make. I've always just kind of hung out with people until they get sick of me, because that's part of the thing that I love about this. If even one person, you know, hears this and then they go like, I have to pick up a guitar, man, that's awesome. We always need more people who are playing instruments and so on. So that's like, you know, but again, if that's what bands need to be doing in order to exist, then that's what they have to do.
Will this album come out on vinyl?
Oh, that's a great question, and it depends on the label. You know, it's a German label. They still buy a lot of CDs in Germany, so it's definitely coming out on CD. And I look forward to having one on my wall, and you know, the artwork as well. Vinyl is another question. It depends on sales volumes. It depends on expectations. It depends on what people want. So, you know, if you're watching this and you want a Kindred North vinyl, get in touch with us, and we'll tell the label that that's what people want.
Tell me a little bit about them frames behind you.
Oh yeah, well this is the collection. These are I over the years I've been active in the music business for a little over 20 years, and I've recorded 24 albums. Some of them on vocals, some of them on guitars, some on keyboards, some all three, you know, or combinations of them. And it's everything from, you know, there's some, you know, progressive metal, there's power metal, there's AOR on this wall, there's symphonic metal, there's concept albums, there's stuff where I've been, you know, the hired gun, there's stuff where I've written every song. It's just it's a whole eclectic collection, and I just love putting it up here because one of the cool things about making music is it goes from a first and fragile plan in your head to something you can hold in your hand. And I love that, the tangibility of having these things on the wall behind me. It inspires me to do more.
What was the feeling like the first time you met, I guess, one of your idols or one of your guitar guys or anybody? What's that feeling like the first time?
It's unbelievable because these people are not human to you when you're a teenager. These people are gods. These people are something else. You know, they're another species. And so when you find out that somebody from another species will, you know, come down to your level and talk to you, it feels, you know, the Wayne's World, we're not worthy. You know, that's literally what it feels like. But I'll tell you, one kind of life-changing moment for me was, it was in 2007. We were making a record with the band I was in at the time, and my biggest vocal idol, because I sing in Kindred North as well, is a Swedish singer called Göran Edman. He is everything. I mean, the guy is, I modeled my voice after him. I learned every song he sang. He was my absolute hero as a vocalist. And he did a guest appearance on that record. And what happened was, you know, he sent us his files, and we never met the guy. It was a Dropbox project. But we got a review back for that record, and it said on one of the songs, the one that he appears, it said, Göran Edman appears on this song, but I can't figure out where. And I was like, oh wow, you know, because literally that to me was like, you've made it. Now you sound like this guy, you know, and that was that. I'm still living on that. It was 19 years ago, and I haven't come down from the high yet.
In your early years, like your younger years, teenage years, did you collect anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I collected vinyl records. I loved making, I have a nice vinyl collection downstairs, and it has all those usual suspects. It has everything from, Journey and Survivor and Bon Jovi and Halloween and Yngwie Malmsteen and so on. It's got all the classics, Dokken and so on. And so that was a really fun part. And back in the days when you couldn't just pull up a song on YouTube or Spotify the instant you had the instinct to do it, you actually had to take the album out, listen to the songs in sequence. I mean, remember sequencing, like how important that was, what order the songs came in.
Yeah.
And when you're done with one side, you flip it over and you're sitting there the whole time, you're looking at these pictures, you're reading through the lyrics, you get to know all these credits. That's how I got some of my guitar heroes as far as being a session guy, like Mike Landau and Steve Lukather. Those people I discovered by reading liner notes. I'm like, who's this Michael Landau guy who's on everything? Everything has the same guitar player. When you're on Spotify, how are you ever going to find a session player like that and delve into their work? So yeah, so vinyls are huge for me when I was a kid.
How do you reach out to new fans?
By doing this. I do this.
There's no radio. There's no radio no more. There's basically nothing in your car no more. I mean, it got to be hard.
It's hard. It's really hard. And you have to basically call in every favor and see, whose podcast can you be on? What can you do? Like, are there other people who can feature your music in their TikTok videos and so on? And again, this is the part of the industry that I don't understand, and that came so many decades after I got started. I have a little daughter, and I usually think about, like, when she's growing up now, I mean, what am I going to teach her? Because I'm from a different planet. I grew up in the 1980s. The road to stardom was, you played shows, you made a demo, you got discovered by an A&R person, you did a showcase. It's like, I could tell her all about that, but none of that is true anymore. Nowadays you have to break on social media, and you kind of develop a following there. Then you take that following and you parlay that against, management or whatever. Who knows if you even need a record company anymore, because who's printing records and who's buying them? The entire industry has shifted so much that people like us don't understand it anymore. And hopefully, our hope is that there's going to be a lot of people out there who are listeners who kind of feel the same way. So they don't understand, how do you get in touch with a new band? And my hope is that we'll find each other.
Is there anything I missed you'd like to talk about?
Oh, I mean, you should never ask a guitar player, if he wants to talk about something else, because I could talk to you for about 3.5 days about all the intricacies about recording and the equipment I used and everything and so on. But I all I can say is, I don't think for Andreas and I, we don't really remember choosing music. It just ate our lives, and now we have suffered as musicians for years in perfection and trying to make this album for you. So give it a listen is all we can say. We just spend an hour with us and take that labor of love on board, and do us a huge favor by letting us exist in your head for a little time.
Andy, it was great talking to you. Great chat.
Thank you.
A lot of information.
Thank you very much.
Got a little bit of know about your mind.
Yeah.
I thank you very much. Would you like to say anything in conclusion?
No, thank you. Just that, remember, we have one single out right now. It's called Natural High. We have one single a month coming until August 21st, when the whole record will be out. And stay tuned for more Kindred North.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Andy. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.